that we may be worthy to be filled with the sanctification as we receive these
In
waters.
Eastern churches, Epiphany is one of the most important feast days, though it's known by another name, Theophany.
Let us pray to the Lord.
Theophany is celebrated more in the Eastern Church than Christmas because the beginning of the ministry of Christ at his baptism is considered by us to be fundamental to understanding our vocation as Christians. Of course, Christmas is important because it's the incarnation of the Word, the birth of Christ, but the beginning of his ministry at his baptism for us is a greater celebration. In church, on the Feast of Theophany, we have the water in the font, and we bless it. We're using a very ancient prayer of a patriarch of Jerusalem, and we insert the cross 3 times into the water to bless the water, and we sing a hymn appropriate for the feast, and after that, the water being blessed is then taken to people's homes, and in that way, people connect themselves to the baptism of Jesus and to the gift of the Holy Spirit.
Icons are an important part of the Orthodox Church, and the icon of Theophany is particularly special.
We see the Holy Spirit in the form of a dove and Christ in the waters, and we see the hand of the Father proclaiming the word, "This is my beloved Son." It's important to me because we see Christ in his baptism, the voice of the Father, and the Holy Spirit descending on him in the form of a dove. This reveals to me and to the whole world a new life.
What's the significance of icons?
Well, St. John of Damascus says, we paint what we have seen. So now God has taken on human flesh, we can depict him. On the one hand, you could say they're important as someone would have a picture of the grandmother and love it and adore it and kiss the grandmother who's departed. On the other hand, it could be an encounter with the eternal, with the divine.
Do you know who this is?
It's Archimedes sitting in his bath shouting Eureka as he discovers the law of hydrostatics. He had an epiphany, a flash of inspiration, if you like, when he suddenly realized and developed the mathematical principle that bears his name. Today, the word epiphany means sudden insight or realization, just like Archimedes had as he sat in his bath. Such moments can occur anywhere. Not far from Blackburn Cathedral is the magnificent Pendle Hill. Just 40 years after the famous witch trials that took place here, a young Christian man named George Fox was walking on Pendle Hill when he had what might be described as an epiphany.
George Fox is arguably the most important founder and leader of the early Quaker movement. He was born in 1624 and lived through the turmoil of the English Civil War period.
Like many people at the time, George Fox was dissatisfied with the established church and was seeking a purer form of Christianity.
He'd already had an epiphany in the sense. He'd come to the conclusion that what mattered was focusing on the workings of the Spirit within all people. He'd already been travelling around areas of the North Midlands and Yorkshire and preaching to people. When he came to the Pendle Hill area, he felt the Lord calling him to go up on the hill. And when he got there, he had a particular vision, a people to be gathered. He was looking to the north, actually, and the early Quaker movement really started in that area of the country before it spread out across the whole of England and beyond. It's always been important for Quakers to recognise that the Spirit is available to all people, and therefore the possibility of an epiphany is always there. Quaker worship is very much based on sitting quietly and waiting for the Spirit to guide and transform us. And so at any moment we might experience an epiphany that completely transforms our lives.
For 3 centuries after George Fox's epiphany on Pendle Hill, Ray Lovegrove walked into a Quaker meeting one day and had an epiphany of his own.
When I was a young adolescent, I had the normal kind of problems that adolescents have. I was angry and didn't know quite where to turn to. and I found an encyclopedia with religions in it. I started looking at them and going along every week to see what they're all about. I don't think I found Quakers under Q. I think I found them under R for Religious Society of Friends. And I went along and instantly there was something different about them.
Striving towards a flourishing, just and peaceful creation.
I started going regularly to Quakers and eventually found myself with a copy of George Fox's journal. The most important thing that came through it for me was the idea that you had this channel of communication within you, and all you have to do is give yourself space and silence and open that corridor, if you like, to communicate with God. I've read lots of other accounts of people having epiphany moments, moments when their life's changed, and Quakers don't generally use the word, but I think it's quite suitable to describe the change that brought around in me. Being a Quaker has affected me in all kinds of ways, and it's made me live as a Quaker, really from when I get up in the morning to when I go to bed at night. I try to live as simple a life as I can. I live by growing our own food, and most of the things we eat on the table actually come from our own garden. I also dress very simply. I dress in a way that many Quakers do around the world, and that reinforces to me I'm not just a Quaker at meeting, I'm a Quaker when I'm feeding the chickens, I'm a Quaker when I'm digging the garden, I'm a Quaker when I'm cooking food, and that's important.